Welcome back, sailors. This is your captain speaking, and welcome to another episode of Bruise News. We're on episode 13 now. Episode 13. Now, I know that I forgot to do, I just kind of got into some stuff, and I needed to take a little bit of time to readjust and look at some things once again. But, we're still pumping out the videos. We're still doing 2 every 2 days. From this point on, I just have to keep on top of that, not get inside my own head, because I'm pretty bad for that. But, we're working at what we can work at. Well, not we, just me, but, I'm doing what I can, and I'm learning and adjusting still, so bear with me. I'm really enjoying doing these, though, because it does take my mind off of certain things. Not that, there's anything wrong with that. You sort of need an outlet, and sometimes I forget that. I focus so much on my daughter or other things that it ends up taking focus away from myself. And you always have to keep focus and stay ambitious. And this is something that's been important to me, and I need to keep doing it, even though it's not necessarily going in the direction that I necessarily want it to. Eventually, if I keep working at it, I think that it will. Not that I think that overnight I'm going to be some sort of internet sensation, but it would be nice to get to a spot where I'm really a go-to for thousands of people to see and talk about the information, and maybe they understand how I'm feeling about these situations more. Anyways, to recap from last weekend's event with Cerrone versus Iaquinta, I had called all 5 fights wrong, except for I called 4 wrong. Sorry, I pronounced that terribly. I pronounced 4 of the fights wrong. I got 1 right, which was I'm getting upset at the fact that I'm not able to get any of them right, because it's making me look bad. It's making me look like I'm less knowledgeable than I am, but that's fighting. Fighting is one of those sports where anything can happen, because it's really just 2 people going into a cage and duking it out, and situations can be dictated differently, and sometimes people come into the fight with a good game plan. Sometimes people have an off night, and I've been having lots of off nights when it comes to calling these fights. But I promise you one thing, that I am better at calling these fights than I seem at the moment. So give me some credit. The time will come, and I will adjust better. Just skipping ahead to the main event, we'll just talk about the Iaquinta-Cerrone fight. Cerrone, he brought it. He is completely different. He's on a 4-fight win streak now. I think 3 of those fights, actually I think all 4 of these last 4 fights that he's had and won, he's finished everybody. Now, I don't think that Cerrone is necessarily a contender, because chances are that Khabib will probably roast him, because Cerrone, above losing to pressure fighters, he loses to wrestlers every single time that he goes against them. Sometimes he loses to wrestlers not even by your typical ground and pound style at all. He just loses to wrestlers because when a wrestler gets into the cage, just having a wrestling background makes people more tentative to throw things like kicks. And Cerrone's a kick-heavy. He has a kick-heavy style. So the fact that he has to watch throwing those kicks to stay standing is very important to his style. So he has to kind of slow down his momentum. Anyways, going back, the Iaquinta fight was really good. Both guys fought really hard. The first couple rounds were really close, but Cerrone, after the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, he really started to take off with the fight. He was landing combos more. He was landing in the exchanges. He was staying in the pocket, which was something I wasn't expecting him to do against Iaquinta, because Iaquinta is smaller, and you tend to not want to be in the pocket when you're a taller fighter, because your reach ends up getting negated by shorter punches. Now, actually, that's something that I'm going to get into later on, coming up with this event we have happening tomorrow. Anyways, both guys, they fought fantastic. Cerrone, even though I'm not a gigantic fan of Cerrone, he did phenomenal, and I can't take anything away from the guy. His last couple fights, I don't know, dozen in the past 2 years, the guy fights all of the time. He's done a lot, and he's up there for a guy who kind of deserves a title shot. I don't think it's anything more. Maybe Poirier fights him before they finish up with Khabib. I think Khabib wants to have his fight scheduled or in September. So at some point that's going to happen. And I know that Cerrone's shown interest in fighting Conor McGregor, which is another fight that a lot of people want to be seeing right now, as that fight was supposed to happen, but Conor declined the fight because of money issues. Going forward into talking about this weekend's event. So we have Cannonier versus Anderson Silva. We have Jose Aldo versus Volkanovski. And then we have Thug Rose versus Andrade. Or Andrade, that's the way it's pronounced. Starting with the first fight that's going to happen is Cannonier versus Anderson Silva. Actually, I think it's Aldo versus Volkanovski first. This fight is interesting because Volkanovski is kind of a late bloomer. He was a really accomplished rugby player, and he moved into mixed martial arts, and he's 19-0, and he's a beast, and he just retired Chad Mendes. The dude's a monster. And he has a style actually pretty similar to Aldo, except Volkanovski is very well-rounded. He tends to not be as aggressive as Aldo, but at the same time, he likes to stay in the pocket and throw big exchanges. He's really tough. He's got that rugby background really makes him not scared to exchange. And it's not that Aldo isn't. It's just Aldo throws the leather. Like, Aldo tries to take your head off, and it's one of the reasons he's one of my favorite fighters, because even his backstory and the way that he is as a person, like, he's just a good human. He's a great fighter. He gives everything he has when he goes in there, and yeah, he's not where he was years ago where people couldn't touch him at all, but he's still very good. And we even saw that against Jeremy Stevens, where he landed that crazy body shot, and it was nuts. If I had to pick a winner, I obviously want to go for Jose. I want Jose to win all the fights, because he's one of my favorite fighters. And I want him to be champion, and I wanted him to beat Holloway. I'm not even really a big fan of Holloway, but the kid is super good. But I would love to say that Aldo is going to win this fight, and I want him to win this fight, but that's what my heart says. And what my brain says is that Volkanovski will probably get the job done. He's younger, he's meaner, he's stronger, he's tougher probably, because Aldo's been fighting for like 18 years now or something like that, 16 years. He's been pro for a long, long time. And a lot of people don't know this, but Aldo used to fight in Shuto boxing and all that stuff, so he's been in wars with guys that were trying to kick his head off while he was on the ground, and he's done that to people himself. So Aldo's really a seasoned veteran, and he's had, his rough fights here and there, and I just don't think that Aldo will be able to bring to the table the things that he's going to need to be able to finish Volkanovski. And I think that Volkanovski will be able to get to Aldo probably by the second round, and possibly even get the finish in that round. But that's not to say that Aldo can't destroy him, because he's definitely capable of destroying anybody in the featherweight division. Moving on, we have Cannonier versus Anderson Silva. Cannonier's he's another guy who's just hyper aggressive, throws a lot of strong punches and kicks, and he throws everything into his strikes. Now that can spell disaster against a guy like Anderson Silva, who's so extremely accurate. The problem is that I don't know if Anderson has the killer instinct that he used to. Anderson at one point, nothing could stop him because he wanted to fight. And I just don't think that Anderson wants to fight the same way that he did. The last time we saw Anderson really bring it was against Bisping, and I thought that he won the Bisping fight, especially at the end when he landed that crazy flying knee and he dropped Bisping, and Bisping's mouth guard, like, Bisping kept spitting his mouth guard out and stopping the fight. Like, it was just a bunch of drama, and that's the last time that we really saw Anderson bring it. I didn't really think that he brought it too well against Adesanya, and I don't know if it's because he wants to destroy a young kid's career when he's on the way up. But at the same time, I don't think that Anderson is that type of guy. I think that he's a guy who likes to go out and have fun, and I think that's what he's doing now. Instead of being competitive as he was, he's really out there to have fun and enjoy his last few years in the cage, instead of taking it so seriously that, every fight has to be a finish and every fight has to be spectacular. Cannonier's a beast, and I do not want to see Anderson get knocked out, but there's a good chance that happens, and there's a good chance that it could go the other way. Personally, though, I do think that Anderson is able to avoid the heavy strikes from Cannonier, and I do think that Anderson is going to be able to get off the striking and combinations that he's going to need to slow Cannonier down. And by the second and third round, Anderson will probably take off on the scorecards and outland him and win the fight by decision. Moving on to the main event. We have Rose Namajunas versus Andrade. Now, there's some interesting things with this, okay? So, Rose is one of my favorite fighters, female fighters. She's absolutely fantastic. She's so good. I was one of the only people who was behind her when she fought against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I was one of the only people that really believed that she could win that fight because she was still so young and learning and adjusting so much that her record wasn't properly showcasing how good she actually was. And she came into the first fight and actually beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who was undefeated in like 20-something fights and like 9 in the UFC. She was on her way to holding the UFC record. And Rose, with a 6-4 record at 24 years old, which I think is the same as John Jones, she ended up knocking or TKOing Jędrzejczyk. Then they came in the second fight, and a lot of people, including Jędrzejczyk, had said that Rose had got lucky and that Rose wasn't that caliber fighter and that she didn't deserve that and that it, whatever it may be. Well, Rose came out and she absolutely took it to Joanna, and she beat her in the first 2 rounds. Joanna came back in the 3rd and 4th, and then in the 5th round, Rose took off with the fight. Now, one of the reasons why Rose is so good in these situations is she's really, really good at moving in and out of the pocket, in and out of range, because she's good at using her body type. That's really good when you have fast fighters like that, because fast fighters, they tend to, especially when you have a combo-based fighter like Joanna, she tends to stop. When you have a person who has to throw combos, you can't throw combos lunging forward or lunging backwards. You have to stop and throw in that position so you're not throwing your body off and you're getting all the torque that you need to. But with Rose being able to slip in and out of the pocket the way that she was able to effectively negate the strikes that Joanna was able to throw, and she was able to get in and out of the range that Joanna was striking at. She was landing great leg kicks and great strikes, great punches, great body, everything. She was doing phenomenal. So this is where the problem with Andrade comes in. Andrade is short. She's, compared to Rose, I think she's maybe 2 or 3 inches shorter, but she has about 3-4 inch reach difference as well. So Rose has a lot of reach on her. Now, we saw Andrade about 8 months ago knock out a girl named Karolina Kowalkiewicz. It's one of those crazy Ukrainian names. Anyways, everybody just calls her Karolina, so we'll just call her that because that's her name. Anyways, Karolina is a fantastic boxer, and Andrade was able to slip into the pocket, and she eventually knocked out Karolina. And because Karolina's jab, because they're so small, right? Like, I should have mentioned that first. They're straw weights, so these girls are 115 pounds. So when you have a girl who's a big, bulky 115-pound girl, and then you have a girl who's, say, 5'7", and she's tall, she's not generating enough power from the hips to stop a shorter fighter from coming in. Because when you're shorter, you generate faster punches at a shorter distance. So when Andrade is able to move in and out of the pocket, those punches, those hooks from the outside, they're coming in a lot faster than those hooks could come from a taller fighter. That spelled disaster for Andrade, and that could spell disaster for Rose if she's not able to move in and out of the pocket properly. If she stays out of range for the first 2 rounds and she's able to effectively slow down Andrade, there's a good chance, which I think is going to happen, that Rose will be able to effectively dismantle Andrade that way in terms of striking. And she'll probably get the finish at the 4th round if that's the game plan, which I assume it will be. Now, if Andrade is able to get inside on Rose and is able to land those big, strong hooks, chances are that Andrade knocks Rose out, which is very scary. And that's exactly what the game plan probably is for Andrade's camp. They probably know that Rose is very good at slipping in and out of the pocket, and she's evasive, and she's going to use those long punches to keep Andrade at the distance that she needs to, where she can land and not get hit. That's obviously the plan in most fights anyways, but it's especially effective when you have a tall fighter versus a small fighter. So Andrade on the inside of that, she's wanted to use her footwork to get on the inside and be able to effectively take away the damage that those long punches are going to be able to do, and use her short punches to reach those hooks and hit the chin a lot faster and a lot more accurate than Rose will be able to inside of the pocket. So again, I do have Rose winning that fight. I probably by the 4th round she'll probably get the finish. I do think it'll be a submission. It probably won't be a TKO. I think that Andrade is a little bit too tough, but she'll probably tire out, and by the end of the 2nd round, 3rd round, Rose will take off, and then by the 4th round, I think that Rose will probably get the finish by, hurting her and getting on top, and Rose has a great submission game. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to say sorry again for the delay in the videos. Just life. What can you do? Anyways, thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a great day.